Hello, everyone. This is Liz Jensen. I'm here with Alina, Corinne, and Cheryl for our third Metabolic Mastery class. We are excited to share with you. Some of us just got back from a Metabolic Mastery weekend where we learned all about metabolic health, so we're even more excited to share the importance and the benefits on how to become more metabolically healthy. I want you to think about this past week since our last class, and I want you to think about what's one win that you had over the past week. What's something that you did well? And if so, if you can think of that, give yourself a little pat on the back, and because we always want to celebrate our wins. And then I always like to think about a struggle that I've had. So think about something that you want to commit to do better because we're going to be talking about some goal setting today. And so I want you to think about what that struggle might have been, whether was sleep or something with your nutrition or exercise, or maybe how you handled your temper with a loved one. Think of a struggle that you've been struggling with lately, and we're going to put those struggles to use so that we can make those strengths today. Before we get started, I just want to um, share my story real quick. Let me stop my screen. We always like to celebrate where we've come from and how far we've come and what we're working toward. So my quick story is when I found this program about 15 years ago, I knew nothing about metabolic health. The only thing I cared about is losing some baby weight. I was pregnant with my fifth baby at the time. I've had six babies, but I always gained a lot of weight with each pregnancy. Had a lot of inflammation, back pain, joint pain, intense sugar cravings, all of the symptoms of metabolic dysfunction I struggled with. I had trouble sleeping, and after I had my babies, I had a really hard time losing weight. I wasn't processing that energy well, and I just couldn't kick that sugar addiction. I could eat really healthy, but I always craved sugar. And so when I found this program, I got into fat burn. It wasn't called a metabolic reset back then, but it was basically the same thing where we are learning to balance our blood sugar. And within the first week, I noticed a huge difference. I was shocked that I wasn't craving sugar anymore. And I was getting out of bed and my inflammation was much better. My back wasn't hurting. And carrying that heavy car seat around wasn't killing my back. I was seeing these non-scale victories. I had more energy. I wasn't just sitting on the couch with my kids anymore. I was out playing at the park with them. And that was really exciting. And so it was then that I knew I could do this. Just 1 week, committing to this program for 1 week. So after about 3.5 months, I lost 45 pounds and just felt better than I could ever remember, even better than when I was in high school or college. And so that made me really excited. I was excited to share this with other people. I started coaching during my program and started helping other people get healthy. And that was fun. You know, I got to the lowest weight that I'd been in as long as I could remember. And but then over several years, I've been coaching for about 15 years. I noticed that I was kind of getting stuck in this white knuckling, like just trying to keep that weight off. And that's when the excitement of getting strong really hit. And so I started working on muscle, on strength, stopped worrying about the number on the scale, and started working on building more muscle. Ladies, is my picture popping up here? Okay, just want to make sure it was working. So in this first picture in the orange tank top, I had been lifting for over a year at that time. I wasn't really seeing a lot of results. I thought that I was getting stronger. That was the strongest that I'd been in a long time. But
Hey,
then I
Liz.
started
Liz,
using,
we're not seeing that picture. Sorry.
oh,
We're
you're
just
not.
seeing the first
Okay.
picture you shared.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. Um, we'll see. Maybe I have to close the other one, but I'll stop share real quick. But a little bit about my strength journey is I just started getting passionate about getting strong. I stopped worrying about the number on the scale and started just wanting to get stronger and healthier. And it's funny that when we focus on one thing, then the benefits come in so many different areas. I started getting stronger. I started using the essential amino acids and focusing on protein and really using all of the components of a metabolic reset. And it was amazing, the difference that I felt even after 6 months. So the difference here is about 5 or 6 months of weightlifting using all of the essential amino acids and the protein and following the metabolic reset. And so what I've found since then, since focusing on strength, is I'm not chasing that scale. I don't even worry about the scale because it's not fluctuating like it used to. And so that's really exciting for me. And once I learn to understand the blood sugar balance, I can be more conscious of what I'm eating and what it's actually doing to my body. And so this journey for me has changed over the years. I've been doing this for about 15 years. But it started with just wanting to feel better, just wanting to lose that baby weight. And it's evolved to wanting to be strong and to be able to live a healthy, long life. And so that's what we're passionate about, being able to share this with other people and help them to be able to create the life that they want and to live a strong life. And so today we're going to talk about some of those things. A lot of that starts with our mindset. Learning to process these emotions that we're having, because for me it was the emotional eating of craving sugar when I was stressed and learning to recognize those triggers. So a lot of it was mindset, and then a lot of it was just getting into some habits in regards to setting goals and staying consistent with those habits. So we're going to cover a lot of those areas today. I think Corinne's going to start us off, right? Is that right? With we're going to work on a little bit of a mindset shift first about processing emotions. So Corinne, do you want to share a little bit about what you've learned about processing emotions?
Yes, yes, yes. And I do have to say, this is one of my absolute favorite topics. Actually, I love the process of processing emotions. And like honestly, learning about this made so much more sense to me. And it just made everything else I feel like in life make sense, actually. So if you think about it, emotions are energy in motion within our body. That's why they're called emotions, right? So it's energy in motion in our bodies. And so those emotions will come from different circumstances or thoughts that we're having or whatever, whichever one you decide comes first, the thought or the circumstance. But they're not bad, you guys. Okay, so first things first is I'm here to tell you that no emotion is bad for you to be feeling, okay? They just are, right? It's typically what we do with the emotion that is either helpful or not helpful for your journey, right? So, blink your eyes if you've ever considered yourself to be an emotional eater, like when you're celebrating or when you're feeling sad or when you're frustrated or when you're bored. Like those are a lot of this most common emotions that people feel, and they'll automatically turn to food. And so because we're not sure what to do with this emotion, right? We're just like we need to cover it up somehow, or we need to hide it somehow, or we feel ashamed for feeling it or something like that. And so we'll just go to food. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about how you process emotions. So let me share my screen. Okay. You guys see that? See if I can make it big. Okay. So the first thing that you do when you come up to emotion is you want to name what the emotion is. Like I am feeling sad, right? We're just gonna go with sadness first. So you just want to name it. So naming it gives it a label for you to make it more real, right? And then you want to locate it. So we have lots of resources that can help you with this too. So if you feel like you need something extra after this Zoom, just talk to the coach that invited you, and we have some resources that we can send you. So, locating it. So, a lot of times when we're feeling like sadness, you might start to notice like tears coming to your eyes, right? Or sometimes when you're feeling anxiety, like I know for me, like my heart starts to race. So I feel it in my heart, in my heart. Um, or, sometimes if I'm nervous about something, I will feel something in my stomach, right? So there's a different place in your body for each emotion. Um, so this is the next thing. Okay, so we name it, we locate it, and then we express it. Okay, this is where people get tripped up, I think, a little bit because what does that look like? And we're adults, and so sometimes I feel like society has told us that feeling emotions is not necessarily okay or acceptable. And it is quite the opposite. It is actually very healthy for you to do. And when you get good at this whole process literally could take like 2 minutes. It does not have to take very long. Now, sometimes I have to go through this process multiple times a day, but each one literally doesn't take that long. So expressing it, so if you're feeling sadness, maybe you need to sit and cry for a minute. right? Maybe if you're feeling excited, you need to go, ah, you need to like make a sound or something like that. It's totally acceptable when you're processing emotions to make sound to go with the emotion. It's not uncommon at all, and it actually helps with the expression, right? So when you have energy moving inside of your body and you express it, you need to let it out. Okay, so it's coming out of your body. This is how we process it. Um, I know with anger, this is one that a lot of people struggle with when we're processing anger. So, anger is not bad. Okay. Remember, none of these emotions, no emotion is bad. It's what we choose to do with it. Right. So, anger, maybe some people will clench their fists and will like squeeze them really hard. You don't have to throw a temper tantrum like a 2-year-old as an adult, right? But there's been times where I've had to the anger is so much that like I go to my room and I will like grab my pillow and I like physically have to do something. Or some people will, I've had kids where they get upset about something and they'll like growl. They'll go, "Oh," or something like that, to help them process it. But here's what happens is that when you name it and you locate it and you begin to express it, you'll notice it start to leave your body. Okay. And there's a lot of power in this, you guys. There is so much power. Um, and then I love these last two steps. Allow it to be, and what is the wisdom? So, can we accept that I'm feeling anger about this, or I'm feeling sadness about this, and just allow it to be there for a second rather than trying to stuff it away? So, what you'll find is when you go through this process, this is what I have found is that I actually don't have cravings for food like ever anymore. I put a lot of time into practice into this a couple of years ago. So I have been coaching for over 12 years. And when I first learned about this process, it was back in like 2019, I think maybe early 2020. And and it was life-changing, you guys. And so I've been practicing it for a long time. And I will say I don't have cravings for food anymore. I literally use food to fuel my body, and that is it because I have learned this process and practiced it so much. And like it seriously is one of my favorite things. And then what is the wisdom? So what is this emotion trying to teach you or tell you about what is going on in your life, right? So sometimes like I feel like, oh my gosh, I need to cry, and to stop and like to process it and to allow it to be there or something like that, I can sit and I can think about what am I feeling sad about right now, or why am I feeling so angry about this right now, or why am I feeling so excited about this, what about this circumstances brings so much joy to me, right? And it's just so helpful to be able to go through this. So like I said, wisdom. So each emotion has wisdom to share. Hopefully you guys can see that. So happiness often signifies contentment and fulfillment in life or specific situations. Sadness will often reflect loss, disappointment, or need of support or connection. So it could be like some loneliness going on, right? Anger indicates frustration or perceived injustice, prompting to need for a change. I feel like that one is super interesting. I feel like we have a lot to learn from anger because I feel like that is an emotion that we don't talk about very often. Um, and then fear serves as a warning signal about potential threats or dangers. Okay, this is where people get tripped up about fear because fear and anxiety kind of go hand in hand, right? And we need this emotion, okay? So this is super important for us to feel. We have this emotion for a reason because it keeps us safe. And I think that the world has turned this into we are not supposed to feel anxiety or we should not be feeling sadness all the time, right? Guess what, you guys? It's a normal emotion, right? We need anxiety to get us through on a daily basis because it helps warn us of potential threats or dangers, right? It's what we do with it. So sometimes when I start to feel like my heart start to race a little bit, I'm getting some flutters in my stomach or whatever, and I know, okay, my anxiety is coming up. What am I nervous about? What am I afraid about? Right? And just kind of allow it to be there. Don't stuff it down. Don't try to hide it, and just ask yourself, how is this serving me right now? What is it trying to tell me? Um, so let's see. Surprise represents unexpected events, which can lead to curiosity or reevaluation of situations. I thought that was really interesting. And then discuss signals aversion to something perceived as offensive or harmful, protecting personal boundaries. So you guys, I am just here to tell you, emotions are so powerful. I I love learning about emotions, and I thought I would share just one quick experience, and then I'll turn the time over to Cheryl if she's ready to go. Um, is so my sister passed away in 2020, and I've had people who have died in my life in the past and things like that. That you kind of go through the emotions and but not quite knowing what to do with grief, not quite knowing what to do with sadness or anything like that. And I had learned this process previously to this, okay? And so I told myself when I was going through this experience that I was going to use this process to be able to help me get through it. And 6 years later, I will tell you, when I look back and think about the grief and the sadness and the different emotions that come from losing my sister, I actually I like to think of it. It was actually a beautiful experience because I was able to be present with my emotions as they came and as I felt them. And that's a little bit about what processing emotions is about, is that you have to become present with yourself. Right? It's not something like sometimes when I'm feeling anger, I'm like, okay, in this circumstance right here where I'm at right now, now is not the time for me to process it, right? In the middle of the grocery store and I'm feeling angry, I can't process my anger. So I will sometimes process it a little bit later, but being able to be present with your body in a way that allows you to really feel your emotions and learn from your emotions can change your health. You guys, it can change your health and it can change your life if you learn the process and you just keep practicing it over and over and over. And so I don't want to take any more time, but you guys, emotions are powerful and they are amazing and they're super fascinating if you actually take the time to get to know them and to get to know yourself. It takes getting to know yourself on a whole different level, and I have absolutely loved and appreciated it myself. So I am going to turn the time over to Cheryl for our next segment, who's going to talk about habits.
Hey, thanks, Corinne. So I'm excited to talk about habits because those are the secret to success with being able to make changes with our health. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to talk a little bit about it. But um, let's see. Okay, can everyone see that okay? Okay. So the habits that we have now are geared towards the results that we are seeing right now. And the cool thing is, there is something that we can do to change it. The event that several of us got to attend this last weekend, one of the big things that stood out is how cool it is to be able to help people to recognize that they have more agency over their future than they thought, and being able to change it. So let's talk about how to do that. And what we have is a habit loop. That's the best way to create habits. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about a habit loop with bad habits. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to change those into good habits. We need routines, right? We need routines to be, or we need to be mindful of our routines. I need routines. We need routines too, but it's not who you are. It's just a bad habit that you've gotten into. So that's something to recognize too, because sometimes we kind of get down on ourselves about our habits, and that, you know, if any of us, like Corinne said, have identified as an emotional eater, we can get down on ourselves about that, or frustrated in the journey. And that's a great thing to remember. It's not who you are. It's just a bad habit you've gotten into, and we can change that. So let's be mindful of our routines. So, for example, right here, often we'll have a trigger, right? We all have our triggers. I think often we know what they are, but it's good to start creating awareness of that. What are the things that trigger me? So it could be stress, right? It could be something that happens with our kids, something that happens with our job. And often that trigger we will have a routine, right? To try to, I guess, comfort ourselves from those feelings, those negative emotions that we don't like. And which on another topic, it's okay. It's good to remind ourselves it's okay to be uncomfortable, right? To get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But let's say your trigger is stress from your kids. That's mine. And then the routine might be sugar. I feel this stress. I need to turn to sugar. When I was a school teacher for several years, and we had the very poor habit of having candy in our facilitator's office, and she would say, "Oh, if you need it, come grab some candy." And so I got in that habit of telling myself, "Oh, I'm feeling stress over, my job, stress over my students," and I was like, "I need this. I deserve this." Like those were the thoughts I was telling myself, and my routine was to go into her office and grab some candy from the jar and have some candy. And that obviously was not serving me, but it gave me a reward, right? It gave me some comfort. It gave me some relief in the moment. And so what we want to do is we want to discover our trigger, change the routine to be able to give us the same reward. The only thing we change is the routine, right? The triggers are going to come. It's great to be able to process those emotions instead of turning to the cake, like Corinne was talking about. But when those triggers come, creating a new routine, like what am I going to do to be able to feel peace and comfort that's not going to sabotage me from my goals? Okay, so choose a new routine. Substitute the old habit for a new habit. And I like this list to give us some activities that we can do the next time we have a trigger and a craving kicks in. So there's examples like take 3 deep breaths. When my kids were small, I felt like there was not much I could do in the moment when I was feeling so much stress. And when I first found this program and was getting healthy after having my first baby, what really, really helped me was getting into the routine of taking 3 deep breaths. That's something that I had time for, even feeling like I, was crazy with kids. And another one could be texting a friend, right? Saying your stress or anger out loud. That kind of is part of processing the emotion. Go outside, leave the house, go for a walk. We can have different routines in place. So when that trigger comes again, we have a new healthy routine that's going to give us that same reward, that same relief that we are seeking. And again, processing through the emotions will be able to help us get to back to a baseline where we are feeling, calm and more in a creative space instead of a victim mentality. And then, anyway, that's a great way to break the bad habits and make better ones. So that's kind of what to do when we have bad habits in place that are really hard to break. And what I also like is one thing that we teach our clients is how to create a new good habit. So, not just when we have a trigger and we want to change the routine that will give us the reward, but also will help us with our long-term goals. But often we want to create healthier habits to help us with those long-term goals, but we might not be in the habit yet. We might not be in the habit of, let's say, drinking our water or exercising or something like that. So what we want to do is we want to create a cue that's going to remind us, kind of like the trigger kind of automatically reminded us of some sort of a routine, right? And so if we can create a cue like setting a timer on our phone, and that will help us to remember, oh, it's time to drink my water, or just do a water check, like where am I at with my water today? Do I need to drink more? Or cue might be laying your tennis shoes, your sneakers out, so that you see them when you get out of bed, and you know to put those on, so that you can go do your walk around the block or whatever. So have a cue in place, because that's going to be the goal is to make the habit, good habits easier and bad habits more difficult. And that's going to help us to create better habits in our life. So have a cue, and then have a routine. And then the reward that comes from that, right? We're going to have the short-term reward of feeling like I accomplished my goal, and the long-term reward of long-term health. So that's kind of something that I think is important for if we're trying to create a habit or change a habit. But these habit loops make all the difference with being able to have sustainable health. I know a lot of people talk about that all the time. What's sustainable, what's not. When we're trying to create a healthy lifestyle, that's for life, right? We want to have routines, habits in place that are going to help us to have sustainable health long term. And then another thing you can do just briefly is you can also habit stack. So let's say you are like, okay, I really want to have some mindfulness every day. I want to be able to take some deep breaths, or I want to be able to um, say some affirmations or something like that. So, or listen to something, your habit of health, book on audio or something like that. Stack it with something you do every day. So let's say you're in a really good habit of brushing your teeth every day. Okay. Well, every time you go to brush your teeth, you can listen to, or if you're getting ready in the morning, listen to your audiobook. Or I've heard do calf raises while you do your brush your teeth. So something that you're really good at, kind of pair it with something you're trying to create, and that's going to make it easier for you to follow into that habit. It's kind of becomes more like your cue, and you're stacking that together. So anyways, I'm going to pass it along to Alina, who's going to talk a little bit more about habits. Let me stop share. Okay.
Thank you so much, Cheryl and Corinne and Liz. Awesome. For anybody who hopped on late, it's fabulous to go and listen to the recording from the beginning because everything that has been shared has been awesome already. I'm going to talk with you guys about movement and the importance of it. And when I talk about movement and being physically active, right, as people, as we're creating those habits of health, there are two different kinds of physical activity, like two different kinds of movement. So there's the kind that's just like you're just a physical person, as far as like you're not like how much time are you sitting in the day? Do you get up? Do you stretch? Do you work on do you walk around and are you, doing things when you're running errands that are movement, right? So it's like how much movement do you just get in kind of your everyday activities? That is one. And then the other form of movement that I'm going to talk to you about is what we call exercise or working out, right? It's like a specific amount of time where that is your focus, that is what you're doing, and you're really working on your physical exercise. So I'm going to share my screen and tell you about what we call these two types of exercises. There's two types of movement. And we call them neat and eat. Doesn't have anything to do with food, the eat part. So the NEAT exercise stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit first. So a lot of the information that I'm getting is from our Habits of Health book and our book called Your Life book. And if you don't have these books, these are great. I ask the coach that invited you for resources to that. But when we talk about the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, I'm going to share with you 6 S's that help you to kind of remember ways that you can utilize that in your everyday to become more of an active person overall, as we're starting to improve all of our healthy habits as we're living this healthy lifestyle, increasing or improving our metabolic health and longevity. So when it comes to NEAT exercises, the 6 S's, one of them is, sorry, I'm trying to find my page where I have that down. But one of them is, so strolling, like how much are you walking around, right? Do you, maybe ways that we can increase our movement in this NEAT category is parking further away from the office when we're going into work so that we have to walk a little further, or parking further away from the grocery store, which just gives us a little bit more movement. Maybe all the times that you get up from your desk and go, get a drink of water, that type of thing. It's just adding more movement. There's standing is another S. And so if you're sitting for a long time for your job, sometimes people will have reminders on their phone of like, it's time to stand up, it's time to stretch, it's time to do something, so that's happening frequently throughout the day. And then posture too, your stance, that makes a difference too. And that can, engage your core. And so thinking about that is another way to create more of this kind of movement throughout your day. Samba, this is my favorite one. So have you ever noticed that if you have music playing, you tend to move a little more? Maybe you're just tapping your foot to the beat. Maybe you're actually dancing. Like it just helps you to have more movement. You're just using your body. And so that's another good one to be able to do that.
Wait,
Switch.
Alina,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you changed slides, it still is on the first slide of tips to get moving.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Yeah, I think that's still the right slide. So, but thank you. So the other thing, I was talking about switch. So if you do things more manually, like maybe using an actual manual can opener instead of an electric one, just things that you can think of that are everyday chores, everyday like activities that you just do around the house or in the office or out and about, that you can add more movement. And then exercise activity thermogenesis is the next form of exercise that we're going to talk about. And that is, like I said before, kind of our dedicated exercise time, right? So the NEAT exercises are movement that we're just adding to our everyday routines, our everyday lives, just creating a little bit more movement and creating more activity just as we go along our normal lives. And then the exercise activity thermogenesis is when we're starting to have this dedicated time to work on improving our strength, like Liz talked about at the beginning of our class. And one of the things that we have in obviously it depends on where you're starting as far as your fitness level. If somebody is just starting brand new, it's a great habit, like Cheryl was talking about, with a cue routine reward and creating new habits. A great habit is to increase our walking, right? And there's a walking program that is explained in our books as well. But it's really something to be able to help you to be able to have, like, even if you're just starting out, to 30 minutes of walking a day. And you can start out with, 5 minutes of a warm up, and then 20 minutes of picking up the pace, and then 5 minutes of a cool down. And you can use a pedometer to track your steps, which is really fun. You want to try to get 10,000 steps a day just from your regular movement that you're doing with those NEAT exercises like I talked about. So that's kind of fun to keep track of, like, how much you're moving and try to get to that point. And then if you have a half hour of a walk on top of that, you're adding even more. And so that's helpful for your exercise activity thermogenesis, the EAT exercise. And so once you feel like you're in a routine with walking, trying to walk, maybe 4 to 5 times a week, you want to go on these 30-minute walks. That's going to be a good habit to get you started with your exercise, and help with your cardiovascular health, and get you into those good habits. And then you can focus on strength. So resistance training, I want to talk a little bit about that. And keep it simple, sister. This is something that can be overwhelming for people. It definitely has been overwhelming for me to start resistance training. Sometimes we get this picture in our mind of just these like buff, guys at the gym, just like doing all the, and that for me was just like, wait, what? Like, how do I do that? So, I'm going to share with you a little bit about how to, start small, keep it doable, make it repeatable, things that are going to help you to add resistance when you're ready for that, um, when you're ready to go to that level. Now, resistance training is important because in our previous classes, we learned about the importance of muscle, how that is our metabolic engine. And as we're working to create better metabolic health, which we all, which is an important thing for all of us to be working on, we need to protect and build our muscle. In the previous classes, we talked about how to do that nutritionally and how to do that with protein and supplementation and different things. And so when we're talking about exercise, obviously that is an important part of, building muscle is also an important part, or important result of exercise. And so that's why we do the resistance training. Now, when you're doing resistance training, you want to focus on, we also have a website, habitsofhealth.com, that has some things that you can see if you're just barely starting, as far as like different exercises you can do. I like to go to fitness classes that are strength training fitness classes. So there's an instructor that's guiding you through what you're doing. You can work with a personal trainer who can really help make sure that your form is right, because that's important also, so that you don't have any injuries. So there are a lot of different resources for getting started, and finding what you like is going to be important for you, because what's the best kind of exercise to do? The one that you're actually going to do, right? And so when it comes to resistance training, there are YouTube videos as well that can guide you and give you instructions. So there are plenty of resources out there. It's just making the decision to get started. And sometimes if it feels overwhelming, you just need to say to yourself, okay, what is the first step? What is the first thing I can do? I have a client in her 70s who, walks with a cane and is working on strength, so that she can have more mobility and more independence that way. And so from where she's starting at, we're working on assisted squats and wall push-ups, to help her. And so doing those things consistently for her are helping her to get stronger. Now, somebody else who might be younger and active and that type of thing, you're going to be starting at a different place with your resistance training, but keeping it simple is important. So there's upper body and there's lower body. And the upper body, core counts for both. But then chest, your back, your shoulders, and your arms are upper body, and thighs, glutes, hamstrings, and calves are your lower body. So if you find resistance exercises just for those muscle groups, then that's a good place for you to start. And you can see there's resistance bands that are being used in this picture. And that is an easy piece of equipment that you can use to be able to do things for all of the different muscle groups. Also, just using your own body weight for resistance is a really good place to start before you're adding on any more like weight, with weights or dumbbells or things like that. And so there are so many different kinds of resistance training and exercise you can do. So you really want to find the one that you like. And so it's okay to think of this as an experiment, as you're getting started with resistance training. If you haven't been doing it, just to say, okay, what is it that I'm going to find, that I like, and just start trying some different things to find what works for you. And again, there are plenty of resources for guidance that you can have with that as well. But really making this something that you're doing 2 to 3 times a week is ideal for building that muscle. And of course, I have to mention our, essential amino acids are a fabulous thing to pair with your workouts to be able to get the most out of your workouts, um, to really strengthen that, that muscle and create the metabolic health that you're looking for. So always having those with a workout is a really helpful thing to get the most out of your workouts. So that is what I have on movement. So working on those non-exercise activity thermogenesis, like working on creating movement in your everyday routines, your everyday schedule, just what you're doing, standing more, focusing on posture, having opportunities to walk more and make more steps and just have more movement, dancing, turning on music. All of those types of things are helpful to get your movement going. And then to focus on it with the exercise activity thermogenesis movement, resistance training is something that you want to get to. So walking and resistance training, if you pair those together, that's going to be fabulous for your health, and you can go from there. But that's absolutely important and essential. So I recommend, like, if you're walking 5 days a week and resistance training 2 to 3 times a week, you're going to be at a good spot that your body and your health and your metabolism is going to be revved up, and you're going to have a lot more movement, energy, and longevity. So let's move our bodies. And now I'll turn the time back over to Liz.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I feel like we covered a lot of things today, both in the mindset, some good skills that we can apply, and about setting goals. So at the beginning of the call, for those of you that were not on, we talked about what's something that you're struggling with. That we talked about what is going well, but also what's something that you're struggling with in your life, specifically with your health, but you can apply this to all aspects of life. That's what I love about these trainings. But think about what's something that would move the needle for you to help you move forward and progress. So hopefully you have something on your mind. And I just want to share how to make that happen. What's the next step? Once we have these tools, what can we do about it? So really quick, just going over this unconsciousness versus consciousness theory. So often we are doing things without even realizing it. So there's a lot of things in our life that we do unconsciously. We don't even realize that we're doing it. We're not aware. But once we become aware of it, then we become more conscious. But we're still not very good at what we're doing. So if there's something in your life that you want to change, let's just throw out something simple like drinking water. Like a lot of people don't even realize that they don't drink any water during the day, that maybe they only drink some Diet Coke. But once you learn about the importance of water and you want to make that change, you become conscious of it. And you start setting goals of how you can drink more water. And so maybe you still struggle with doing it. You have to maybe have a checklist or fill up all your water bottles and keep them right around you so you remember to drink it. So you're very conscious that you're not good at it, but you're working on moving forward. And then the more you practice it, it becomes easier. You're consciously competent. So for me, I'm very consciously competent. Like I still think about drinking water. I still have a goal to drink a certain amount of water, and I consciously think about that. And at the end of the day, I do a little self-check. How did I do with my habits today? And water is one of those things. I ask myself, how did I do with my water? How much water did I drink? Sometimes I did great. Sometimes I realize, oh, I did not drink very much water. Tomorrow, I'm going to do better at that. And the more we practice this, then the more it just becomes part of who we are. We do it without even thinking about doing it. It's so natural to us. And that's really why practice and intentionality is so important, because once you become conscious, once you know better, then you can do better, right? And so I want you to think about something in your life that you'd love to see change, you'd love to get better at. but something that you struggle with. You're probably were unconscious about it before. You didn't even realize that you were doing it before, but now you realize it and you want to make that change. So how do we do that? So what we like to talk about is setting some goals. A micro goal. What I love to do is just get a calendar. You can go to the dollar store and get a calendar if you don't have one, but setting a micro goal, something that you could do even on the worst day. If you had the flu or got home at 12 o'clock at night, you could still do this goal. That would be like your floor, like your bare minimum standard that would get you a check mark for the day. So one example of this is my clients that want to start moving more, we set a micro goal of maybe walking. Like Alina said, walking and weightlifting are such great habits. So let's say you want to start walking. A micro goal might be that you have to put your shoes on and walk to the end of the driveway every day. You could probably do that at 12 o'clock at night if you got home and you're really tired, or if you had the flu, you could probably get to the end of your driveway and back just to get a check mark on your calendar, right? That's like your micro goal. But most of the time, the hardest part is putting the shoes on and getting out the door. Once you do that, and you get to the end of the driveway, then most often you're going to say, you know what? I could walk around the block one time, or I have 10 minutes. I could walk a little bit more. Once you get started, then you usually can do more. It's just getting started. And so every day that you do more than that micro goal, that's your macro goal. So you put a plus. You put a plus on your calendar, and then at the end of the week, you see how many pluses and how many checks you got. And you set a goal for the next week. Okay, I'm going to get an extra plus this week. Once you look at the calendar and it's mostly pluses, then you can see that you are becoming more competent. You're probably consciously competent because you're still thinking about doing it, but it's getting easier. And so that's when you can move that goal up a little bit. Okay, maybe my goal will be that I'll walk for 10 minutes a day instead of just to the end of the driveway. And so you can start setting those goals a little bit higher as you become more competent doing it. So I love to do this because a lot of times we set big goals and then we fail and we quit. But if we set these micro goals that we can celebrate, that we are showing up for ourselves and we're keeping commitments to ourselves, then it becomes easier. So as you think about these things that you're struggling, I want you to pick one thing that you will apply, whether it be in your healthy mind or your healthy body, maybe stopping and processing your emotions, like we talked about. Maybe it's something to do with your health, but think of one micro goal that you will set for yourself this week. And I want you to track it. Every day you do that, put a check or a sticker on your chart. Every day you do more than that minimum, then put a plus. And then start celebrating these wins. And that's really how we make these big changes in our life. And health just becomes part of who we are. So I want to thank you guys for hopping on. We'll go ahead and stop the recording. If those of you that are on would like to jump off mute, if you have any questions, or we'd love to hear maybe what you're going to be working on this week for your micro and macro goal. So thanks for hopping on, and we will see you next time.